It was a warm, balmy evening in Lagos when Temi first met Chijioke. She had just finished a long day at the office and was looking for a quiet spot to unwind. She'd chosen her favorite spot, a small cafe by the busy streets of Victoria Island. Temi was a woman of elegance, her black, natural hair tied neatly in a bun, eyes that sparkled with curiosity, and a smile that made you feel at ease. Yet, despite her charm, there was an invisible wall around her heart, an emotional scar she hadn't quite healed from. Chijioke, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He was a man of few words, with a commanding presence that demanded attention. His height was imposing, and his skin, dark as midnight, gleamed under the dim lights of the cafe. He wore a crisp, white shirt with dark jeans, his face a picture of mystery. Their paths crossed when he accidentally bumped into her as she reached for her cup of coffee. "I'm so sorry," Chijioke quickly apologized, his deep voice calm but rich. Temi, startled by the collision, managed to chuckle softly. "It's all right," she said, her tone warm, though she couldn't shake off the strange feeling in her chest. There was something different about him, something she couldn't place. From that moment, a friendship began to develop. Over several more visits to the cafe, they shared stories about life, love, and everything in between. Chijioke's charm was undeniable, and Temi found herself drawn to him. But deep down, something about him still felt off. As they spent more time together, he opened up about his life, yet always withheld just enough to keep her intrigued. As weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. Temi started to confide in him about the heartbreak she had suffered years ago, a toxic relationship that had left her wary of trusting anyone again. Chijioke listened attentively, his dark eyes filled with a quiet understanding. "You've got to learn to trust again, Temi," Chijioke said one evening as they sat in the same cafe. "People are not the same. You can't let the past hold you back." Temi sighed, looking out the window at the busy street, her mind replaying the painful memories of her ex. "I want to," she replied softly, "but it's hard." He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "I'll show you that it's possible to love again. Trust me." Temi smiled, her heart fluttering for the first time in years. She couldn't help but feel that Chijioke was the answer to all her doubts, the one who could finally help her heal. But little did she know, Chijioke had his own demons, dark secrets buried deep within him, secrets he had no intention of ever revealing. A month into their growing friendship, Chijioke invited Temi on their first official date. He took her to a high-end restaurant in Lekki, where the dim lighting set the perfect romantic atmosphere. The evening was filled with laughter, good food, and quiet moments of connection. Temi felt like she was floating, lost in the enchantment of it all. Chijioke's presence was magnetic, he could make her feel both special and completely at ease. Yet, as the evening wore on, Temi began to notice small oddities. For one, Chijioke kept glancing at his phone, as if waiting for a message. His hand trembled slightly when he held his glass, and whenever a waiter approached, his smile would momentarily fade, replaced by a look of unease. "Is everything all right?" Temi asked, her curiosity piqued. "Yeah," he responded quickly, brushing off her concern. "Just a long day." Temi nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Despite his efforts to charm her, the cracks in his perfect image were starting to show. Eager to see him once more. But when they met, something was different. He was distant, almost distracted. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Just as Temi was about to ask what was wrong, Chijioke's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his face draining of color before he quickly silenced it. "Who was that?" Temi asked, noting his unease. "It's nothing," he said, forcing a smile. "Just some work stuff." But Temi didn't believe him. She had seen the fear in his eyes, and she couldn't ignore the sense of mystery that surrounded him. She had a nagging feeling that he wasn't telling her the whole truth, but she dismissed it. After all, everyone had secrets, right? As their relationship progressed, Temi found herself falling deeper for Chijioke. He was everything she had ever wanted, attentive, caring, and seemingly perfect. But her doubts continued to linger, like shadows in the corner of her mind. One day, while browsing through social media, Temi stumbled upon a post that caught her eye. It was a picture of Chijioke, standing with a group of men she didn't recognize. The caption read, "The real family." Temi frowned. She had heard him mention his family before, but this group of men didn't look like anyone he'd ever talked about. They were dressed in dark suits, standing in front of a luxurious mansion. Something about the picture felt off. Temi decided to ask him about it, but every time she brought it up, Chijioke would change the subject, laughing it off as nothing. Just some old friends, he'd say. But deep down, Temi knew there was more to the story than he was willing to share. Things took a more serious turn when Chijioke invited Temi to his home. It was a grand house in a secluded area of Lagos, far from the busy city life. The moment they stepped inside, Temi felt a strange chill in the air. The house was beautifully furnished, but there was something cold about it, something that made her skin crawl. As they walked through the halls, Temi noticed several old paintings on the walls, depicting men in dark suits and solemn expressions. They looked like they were watching her. "Who are they?" Temi asked, her voice shaky. Chijioke paused for a moment before answering. "They were my father's business partners," he replied, his tone cold. But his answer didn't feel right. Something about the paintings, about the house, seemed too perfect, too staged. As the night wore on, Temi couldn't shake the feeling that she had walked into a world she didn't understand. It was during a quiet evening at Temi's apartment when Chijioke finally slipped up. They were lying on the couch, talking about their future when he mentioned a name. "I hope she doesn't find out," he muttered under his breath, almost as if he were speaking to himself. Temi's heart skipped a beat. "Who?" she asked, her voice trembling. Chijioke quickly corrected himself, but the damage was done. The name he had spoken was unfamiliar to her, but the way he had said it felt like a confession, a slip of the tongue that revealed more than he intended. The unease that had been building within her reached a boiling point. Temi had to know more. But the more she dug, the more questions she had, and the further away from the man she thought she knew she seemed to drift. Temi's obsession with uncovering Chijioke's secrets grew. She couldn't help herself. One evening, after a long day at work, she decided to confront him. She needed to know the truth, no matter how painful. "Chijioke," she began, her voice shaking with emotion. "Tell me the truth. Who are you really? What are you hiding?" Chijioke's face tightened. For the first time, his calm demeanor cracked, revealing a glimpse of the man he had been hiding from her. "Temi," he said, his voice low, "you don't know what you're asking for." "I have to know," she insisted. "You can't keep lying to me." He stood up, pacing the room, clearly conflicted. Finally, he turned to her. "Temi, I'm not who you think I am. There are things about my past, things I've done, that I can never let you find out." Chijioke's secret was darker than Temi could have ever imagined. He was not the businessman he had portrayed himself to be. His past was entangled with a dangerous underworld, filled with shady dealings and criminal enterprises. The men in the photos were part of a network he had once been involved with, a network of power, money, and violence. He had come to Lagos to escape, to start fresh, but the weight of his past followed him like a shadow. He had kept her at arm's length, not because he didn't love her, but because he knew that once she learned the truth, she would never be able to see him the same way again. Temi's mind raced as she processed the revelation. She had fallen in love with a man who had a dark side, one she could never understand. Temi stood at a crossroads. She loved Chijioke, but could she really continue this relationship knowing the depths of his secrets? The pain of the truth weighed heavily on her heart, but she knew she had to make a choice. "I don't know if I can be with you anymore," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know if I can live with the man you were." Chijioke looked at her, the sadness in his eyes more profound than she had ever seen. "If only you knew," he said softly, his voice breaking. "If only you knew the things I've done to protect you." But Temi wasn't sure she could ever look at him the same way again. As the darkness of his past closed in on her, she realized that sometimes, love wasn't enough to overcome the secrets we carry.